welcome people to my first tutorial, or more or less your first class in the whole media thing. It's a pretty simple one. It's pretty easy, not too hard. But today we're going to talk about kind of the principles of photography and I guess the composition of framing and a few things like that to express what makes a good screenshot. Obviously, there's more things going into kind of making a screenshot better than just hopping in theater, finding a good frame, taking that screenshot, and posting it. But that's what we're going to kind of go through, and then come by your second class. There will be that's where you'll learn how to kind of go through the editing process, and I'll show you some apps and a few things. Well, actually, there'll just be a list of apps, and you'll have those all downloaded, but you'll see which ones to use specifically to edit your screenshots, to make them look better, to make them look nice. So let's jump into it. I already took the liberty of going into theater mode and kind of dressing up as a different Spartan. I decided to do a United Nations Army guy with like a commando helmet and a few other different armor pieces than I usually wear. And I went on Breakneck because I feel like Breakneck has some interesting lighting. It's a cool little map. Obviously, you don't have to do this. You can go into, if you were recently in a raid and you want to take some raid screenshots, go into a raid, take some raid screenshots. You can always get some really good cinematic shots of people in a raid, or anything else, a meeting, training, anything. So I'm just going to fast forward to the film here so I can kind of get into my first position. I usually take a few little poses. I took like two here with two different little like looking angles. So that's my first one. So to start out with it, let's talk about the rule of thirds, because that is the most important thing, and I'll overlay it on screen so you kind of get an idea of what the rule of thirds is. Essentially, it's like a grid. It's a 3x3 grid with three different, I guess what you could call sections. You can look at them as vertical sections, you can look at them as horizontal sections, but most people look at them as three kind of vertical sections. You have one on the left side, one in the middle, and then one on the right. And you can see that there are some intersecting lines. Essentially what the rule of thirds is, in photography, the rule of thirds is a type of composition in which an image is divided evenly into two thirds, both horizontally and vertically. And the subject of the image is placed at the intersection of those dividing lines. So, for example, generally it's good to have a subject not framed in the middle like this, or frame them like this. Like, you can frame it like this and it looks okay, but generally the only time I take a photo kind of head on is when I am making a poster and I have a blue screen in the background to crop out the Spartan. But when I'm taking a screenshot, generally it's best to kind of find a different angle, like this. Kind of keep them on a different side, or like this. So as you can see, he's at an intersecting point in the lines. There are no intersecting point of lines in the middle, so generally it's less favorable to have it structured in the middle. It also allows you to kind of crop into more of your background. I generally don't like to keep far away from the Spartan and do one of these, though it does look nice. Doesn't look too bad, but I do like kind of getting up close and personal, especially for screenshots like this. So kind of like how this looks. We'll just trying to get that perfect. There we go. As you can see, that's pretty much a perfectly composed screenshot. and that's pretty simple. It's pretty basic. It's nothing too crazy, but it's always good to start off with the basics, because when we get later on into the courses, you're going to learn video composition as well, and how to compose your shots. And it always is good to start with learning how to compose good screenshots. Just basically no editing involved, nothing like that involved, just learning how to compose a raw, good screenshot, or in this, in other terms, a raw, good photo without any touch-ups. So we're going to press the home button and then Y to take a screenshot. And awesome. All right, so see, I took like another little pose there, but we're going to go to the second one just to see if I think that looks potentially better, if I like this background a little more. And not really. Yeah, background's kind of low poly, but that could work for a secondary screenshot with kind of more of like a blurred background. So yeah, I'm gonna get nice up and close and personal with this one. Maybe change the angle just a little bit, and take a screenshot. All right, so those screenshots are taken, and that's pretty much it. Obviously, you can do this on your own time. You can do this in a game you've been in that you think you might be able to get some cool shots. Obviously, remember your composing tips. There's going to be some different tips for generally each sort of what do you call it? Each sort of like scene, like, yeah, people will be sitting or standing and shooting, but some people might be jumping or sprinting, and just make sure to apply the same concepts to whatever sort of whatever sort of scenario you can run into, right? So that's all for this video. Go out there, take some screenshots, put them in your portfolio, and then send them over to the Course 1 chat. So we can look through them, give you any critiques, and if you're good, if you've observed this video, or I mean, if you've taken good screenshots before, it'll be pretty easy for you. But if you haven't, this is your first run. Take some screenshots. Remember what I told you. Look up the rule of thirds. Read into it a little more, and take about 4 to 6 screenshots and send them this way, so we can review them, look over them, make sure that they look good, give you any critiques that you may need, and then we can move on to course 2 with you and teach you a little bit about photo editing and some of the programs that I use personally to kind of touch up photos in a good way. See you then.